When you die, an ancient Egyptian would tell you, your soul does not simply leave your body. It begins a journey. You pass through a kingdom of shadows, through caverns and rivers, toward a great hall deep beneath the world. And in that hall, a god is waiting for you. He stands over 7 feet tall. His body is that of a man. His head is that of a jackal. Dark, alert, watching. He does not speak. He does not threaten. He simply takes you by the hand and leads you to a set of golden scales. On one side of the scales, he places your heart. On the other, he places a single feather, and he watches as the scales decide the fate of your eternal soul. This is Anubis, the Egyptian god of death, the guardian of tombs, and the being who determines whether you pass into paradise or are devoured by a monster. One of the oldest and most feared figures in all of mythology. Anubis is one of the oldest gods in Egyptian mythology. His worship dates back more than 5,000 years to the earliest dynasties of ancient Egypt. He was one of the very first gods the Egyptians prayed to, and one of the last they stopped worshipping when their civilization finally faded. He was depicted as either a full black jackal or, more commonly, a man with the head of a jackal. The color was not accidental. Egyptian artists did not paint him black because real jackals were black. They painted him that way because black was the color of the fertile soil of the Nile after the annual flood. Black, in Egyptian symbolism, meant rebirth. It meant the soil from which new life would grow. Anubis was not the god of death because death was an ending. He was the god of death because death, in ancient Egypt, was the beginning of the most important journey a person would ever take. The jackal itself was chosen for a specific reason. Jackals roamed the edges of Egyptian cemeteries, drawn by the scent of bodies. To protect their dead, the Egyptians gave their cemetery protector god the form of the very animal that threatened their graves. In doing so, they turned a predator into a protector. The jackal became the guardian. And that guardian had a name, Anpu, in the original Egyptian. Anubis was the Greek version of his name, and it is the one history remembered. Anubis's origin is one of the most dramatic family stories in Egyptian mythology, a story of betrayal, jealousy, and unexpected kindness. His mother was Nephthys, the goddess of the night, and she was married to Set, the god of chaos, storms, and violence. But Nephthys did not love Set. She loved his brother Osiris, the god of life, resurrection, and the king of the gods. Osiris was married to Isis, Nephthys's own sister. According to the myths, Nephthys disguised herself as Isis and deceived Osiris into believing he was with his wife. From that union, Anubis was conceived. When the child was born, Nephthys was terrified. She knew that if her husband Set discovered the truth, he would kill the infant. So she hid Anubis, abandoning him in a basket among the reeds, praying he would survive. And someone did find him. Isis, the wife of Osiris, the woman who had been betrayed, discovered the infant. She could have left him to die. She could have killed him herself. Instead, she did something extraordinary. She took Anubis in and raised him as her own son. The child of her sister's deception became her adopted child. This act of mercy shaped everything about who Anubis would become. The god of death would be defined, from his very first moments, by loyalty and compassion in the face of betrayal. That would matter later, because his father Osiris was about to be murdered. Set, the god of chaos, was consumed with jealousy. His brother Osiris ruled Egypt with wisdom and justice. The land was prosperous, the people were happy, and Set could not bear it. He wanted the throne for himself. So Set invited Osiris to a banquet and presented him with a beautiful golden coffin. He claimed that whoever fit perfectly inside it could have it as a gift. One by one, the guests tried. None of them fit. Of course they did not. Set had designed the coffin specifically for Osiris's exact measurements. When Osiris himself lay down inside, the coffin fit perfectly. Set slammed the lid shut, sealed it, and threw it into the Nile. Osiris drowned, but Set was not finished. When the coffin washed ashore and Isis recovered her husband's body, Set found it again, and this time he cut Osiris into 14 pieces and scattered them across all of Egypt. It was the first death in Egyptian mythology. The king of the gods was dead, and no one knew what to do. Isis travelled across Egypt, searching every river and every desert until she had recovered 13 of the 14 pieces. And that was when Anubis stepped forward. Young Anubis, raised by Isis, loyal to the father he had barely known, offered to do what no other god was willing to do. He would put Osiris back together. He would perform the first embalming in history. And in doing so, he invented the art that would define Egyptian civilization for 3,000 years. Anubis used oils and linens. He wrapped the body carefully. He performed rituals that had never been performed before. Prayers and gestures meant to preserve the body so that the soul could return to it. When he was finished, Osiris was the first mummy. And something miraculous happened. The magic of the embalming worked. Osiris did not return to the world of the living, but he did return to existence. He became the god of the afterlife, the king of the dead, ruling the underworld from a throne in the Hall of Two Truths. And Anubis became the god who had made that possible, the inventor of mummification, the patron of embalmers, the protector of the dead. From that moment on, every mummy ever prepared in Egyptian history was prepared in imitation of what Anubis had done for his father. The priests who performed embalmings wore jackal masks during the most sacred parts of the ritual, physically becoming Anubis for the ceremony. Every tomb, every sarcophagus, every grave in Egypt was placed under his protection. He was invoked by name in prayers over the dead for 3,000 years. But his role was just beginning. The most famous scene in all of Egyptian mythology takes place in the Hall of Two Truths. It is the scene that every Egyptian, from pharaoh to farmer, believed they would experience after death. When your soul entered the underworld, Anubis was waiting. He would take you gently by the hand and lead you through the caverns, past the demons and the gates, all the way to the Great Hall. There Osiris sat on his throne, crowned in the regalia of the afterlife. 42 divine judges stood around the walls of the chamber. Thoth, the god of wisdom with the head of an ibis, waited with his scroll and pen to record the verdict. And at the center stood the scales. Anubis himself performed the weighing. He took your heart, which the Egyptians believed was the seat of the soul, the record of everything you had ever done, and placed it on one side of the scales. On the other side, he placed a single ostrich feather, the feather of Ma'at, the feather of truth, justice, and cosmic order. If your heart balanced evenly with the feather, or if it was lighter, you had lived a good life. You were worthy. Osiris would welcome you into the field of reeds, the Egyptian paradise, a place of eternal happiness where you would be reunited with those you loved and enjoy the afterlife forever. But if your heart was heavier than the feather, if it was weighed down by the burden of sin, cruelty, dishonesty, and wrong, then a different fate awaited you. In the corner of the Hall of Two Truths crouched a creature called Ammit, the devourer. She was a monster built from 3 of the most dangerous animals in ancient Egypt. She had the head of a crocodile, the forequarters of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. Her jaws were enormous, her eyes burned, and she was always hungry. If your heart was heavier than the feather, Anubis would simply step aside. He would not condemn you. He would not judge you himself. He would let the scales deliver their verdict, and then he would let Ammit do what she was made to do. She would lunge forward and swallow your heart whole. And that was the end of you. Not torture, not punishment, something worse from the Egyptian perspective. Total annihilation. If Ammit devoured your heart, your soul ceased to exist. No paradise, no afterlife, no memory, no second chance. You were simply erased from the universe, as if you had never been. To the Egyptians, this was the most terrifying fate imaginable. Worse than any hell, because it was not punishment, it was non-existence. This is what made the weighing of the heart so important. Every Egyptian lived their entire life knowing that Anubis would one day hold their heart in his hand, that the scales would measure everything they had done, and that there would be no appeal, no argument, no negotiation, only the weight of their own choices measured against a feather. As Egyptian civilization declined and other religions rose in its place, most of its gods faded from memory. But Anubis did not. His image has survived longer and more widely than almost any other ancient god. You have seen him in museums, in movies, in video games, in tattoos. His silhouette, the upright, jackal-headed figure, is instantly recognizable even to people who know nothing else about Egyptian mythology. There is a reason he endured. Anubis represents something that every human being, in every culture, has to reckon with. The idea that death is not random, that there is an accounting, that the life you lived, the choices you made, the kind of person you were, all of it will eventually be weighed against something unchanging and true. A feather, an ideal, a standard that cannot be argued with. The Egyptians did not fear Anubis. They respected him. He was not cruel. He was not merciful. He was something more rare and more valuable. He was fair. He simply did his job, carefully, patiently, without favor, for thousands of years. And the comforting thing from the Egyptian perspective was this: Anubis was always going to be there. Whether your heart was heavy or light, whether you had lived well or poorly, he would be waiting at the end of the road to take your hand and walk you to the scales. Not as an enemy, as a guide. Our next video covers Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, and arguably the most dangerous of all the Olympians. If you enjoyed this, watch our full story of Zeus to see where his rivalry with Poseidon began. Subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll see you in the next tale.